You mentioned, Brandon, the 2020 primary and how quickly the Democrats closed ranks behind Biden after Bernie won the Nevada caucus. Now, we had a very revealing quote here from Representative Adam Smith, who is one of the more powerful Democrats in the House. He is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. He is also one of the Democrats most forcefully calling on Biden to drop out, saying that he absolutely cannot win. And it's funny because this fight is just across ideological lines. It's people who believe the polling data and people who want to stick their necks out and people who don't. And so Adam Smith is not somebody that I particularly like at all. He's correct here about Biden, but he also, in his case, reveals something about the 2020 primary that I think vindicated a lot of what Bernie's supporters were saying back in the day.
1,000% confident that another candidate would have better odds of beating Trump in November. If you could hand select that alternative nominee, who would it be?
Well, two things. Number one, I wouldn't, because I don't want to presume that somehow I'm going to make the choice instead of the delegates who have been picked to make that choice. That's our process. That's who they are, and those delegates should make that choice. If they asked me my opinion, I would say we should nominate Kamala Harris. I think the vice president has done an outstanding job, particularly the last couple of years. She's a former prosecutor. She's clear, articulate. I've used the phrase during many of my conversations here. We need someone to prosecute the case against Donald Trump and for the Democratic message and the Democratic agenda. I think we've got a powerful argument. And that was, the debate was incredibly frustrating. We got a powerful argument, and President Biden was completely incapable of making it, any part of it. Okay, I think Kamala Harris can do that. And also, we have the added benefit that because she's his vice president, during all of those primaries, it was the Biden-Harris team that people were voting for. And I think that's a factor. Now, I don't agree with, well, all these people voted for Joe Biden. All those people hadn't seen that debate yet. All those people hadn't experienced the questions that are now being raised about the president's health. But nonetheless, it would help that Vice President Harris had been on the ticket. I think she would give us a better choice. But there are others. And look, it's really not that complicated. I forget how many delegates there are, 3,900, something like that. It's an election, all right? 3,900 people. Let's pick a person. And look, the talent in the Democratic Party, this myth that only Joe Biden could have beaten Donald Trump. Chuck Todd, I think he works for you, could be wrong. But anyway, he wrote a great column this morning that said it's always been about Trump. And I've said this over and over again. Joe Biden was not picked in 2020 because he was the only person who could beat Trump. He was picked because he was the only person that could beat Bernie Sanders, rightly or wrongly. And by the way, for the Sanders fans out there, I'm not judging, but that conclusion was made. Okay. I'm judging. Oh my gosh, coming out of Nevada, Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. And people, just like they are now, back then said, I don't think that's going to work. So they were looking for an alternative. And tip of the hat to Joe Biden, he had the record. 8 great years as vice president, 30 whatever years as a very able United States. He was the right person at that time. And that's great. He's not the right person now.
Congressman.
And this yeah, sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, that's basically it. But he said it.
He said it, and he admitted. But again, no, I was like, again, that's kind of revisionist history a little bit, because like Joe Biden wasn't like a great VP. He just still smelled like Obama a little bit, and people were still desperate for that. Like the same problem we're having now in 2024 with why you could only replace Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, forgetting all of like the campaign financing stuff, for example, is because the Democrats refuse to set up any of their younger politicians for anything other than like a B or C tier role in like, a particular committee or an administration somewhere, because they want to maintain a gerontocracy. They had to coalesce behind Biden, even though many members in the establishment would have preferred someone like Buttigieg, because no one had ever heard of him, because like so many of the other Democratic candidates in that primary had no name recognition, because it's very hard for the Democratic Party to like let go of like elevating 90-year-old men and women. That's like, so now we're in that exact same situation, but it's not trying to beat Bernie Sanders. It's trying to beat Donald Trump. And they still haven't cultivated a younger Democratic bench. They could maybe get Kamala Harris over the line. They could maybe get Gavin Newsom over the line. But like anyone else, like who's heard of them outside of their states, maybe, because the Democratic Party hasn't made it a priority to elevate them to a position that they could run for president, because that would endanger Joe Biden's chances of getting reelected.
I mean, it would also, that's the problem, I think, with the rot here in the Democratic Party, is that it's been about, and whether it be with Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Dianne Feinstein, this prioritization of like institutional seniority, and that being the most important thing, protecting incumbency, elevating people based on seniority, and not necessarily opening up democratic processes for honest and fair elections and challenges within those primaries, creating institutional obstacles, whether it be with the presidency or whether it be with Senate or House races. They have been quite aggressive, unless that incumbent is someone like Jamal Bowman, but we can put that aside. For the most part, they've been really aggressive in protecting incumbents across the board. They had a blacklist for the DCCC if you worked for any progressive that was challenging some of these incumbents. And I think that
But maybe it wasn't about incumbency.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, for the most part, the incumbents that they're protecting are, you know, the ones that are not challenging the establishment. So, or the establishment of the party, whatever that is. The point is just that this speaks to a lack of prioritization of like small d democracy within the Democratic Party, and caring more about their internal politics than what is a winning message or a winning candidate. It's coming home to roost here. And I do think a replacement level Democrat, like even Kamala Harris, would have a pretty good shot against Donald Trump, and at the very least drive turnout to the point where Republicans aren't winning both chambers by massive margins and giving Trump a mandate in 2024 if he wins.
That's definitely a good point. And I think Kamala would definitely have a better chance than Joe Biden at this point. And, you know, it's not just about winning the election in 2024 anymore, because I do hazard against making it the narrative that if we replace Joe Biden with Kamala or with Gavin Newsom, they're going to win, and then they have them lose. Because in reality, even if they lose, it's Joe Biden's fault. And that should not be something that we let slide, because the damage has been done in many ways. Right now, they're polling well against Donald Trump, but we don't know where they will end up in 3 months or 2 months if Joe Biden drops out, like in a month from now, after the messaging from Republicans shift from Joe Biden's old, Joe Biden's demented, to like Kamala Harris knew. Kamala Harris was right there. How come Kamala Harris didn't say anything before this point? That will still impact her candidacy. And so by allowing them to pretend, or by pretending that like Joe Biden's stink is not going to be on whoever replaces Joe Biden, and that the loss that they, suffer is just theirs, is, I think, A, going to turn people off from actually taking over Joe Biden's seat, and B, just impact negatively whatever comes after Joe Biden, because people are going to be assuming that like, well, if we had just stayed with Joe Biden, then he would have won. It's like, no, it needs to be accepted that the establishment messed this up, and that they, in putting Joe Biden forward and putting him on that stage, they weakened every other Democrat's chance of beating Donald Trump, because they made every other Democrat and Democratic Party complicit in what was essentially just like a very small circle of people using Joe Biden's proximity, or Joe Biden being president, and their proximity to Joe Biden to elevate their own career.
This is a new chart out of Pew Research Center to bolster what you're saying, Brandon. Look at that chart. In terms of mental fitness, Trump is up from 2020 to at 58% think he's mentally sharp. Biden has, this is the point that we were saying, the debate only solidified an existing narrative that perhaps we were a little bit inculcated from, in part because I think we were focused on Biden's issues as it related to his support for genocide. But like, look at that drop here. Do you think that affects Democratic trust Biden is
Yeah.
down to 24% think he's mentally sharp. That is a steep decline from 2021 when he was at 53%. It looks like they're liars. That's going to be the problem here.
It's a rough poll too, that you have like that many people thinking you're you're not mentally sharp. Like,
And also Trump going up. It means
Right.
we have short memories. It means that people are forgetting what the Trump administration was like because Biden is
I'm shorter than others, though.
not making the case.
I don't think it's just even that. It's just that comparatively to Biden, Trump does look sharp. I mean, that debate, Trump was horrible because he was just lying nonstop, possibly lying more so than I've ever seen him lie before, just making shit up completely wholesale, things that were the absolute opposite of the truth he was saying. But he had sort of, comparatively to Biden, quips. Like there was a moment where like he said something about what Biden's mumbling. He was like, I can't tell. He looks at the moderator and he goes, I can't tell what he's saying. I'm not even sure if he knows what he's saying.
He
like,
pulled back, by the way. He knew he was imploding and he was like, I don't want to look like I'm beating up on an old man. Sorry, Binder, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Exactly. Like he, comparatively to Biden, he did not look trustworthy. He did not look good. He just looked cognitive. He looked like he was alive. Like Biden just had to go out there and like that poll just showed, everyone was already concerned about him due to his age and what people were seeing and hearing from the short little, interviews, not even interviews, like press moments he has outside. And they were concerned. He just had to go out there and look alive. He didn't even really like I see all these Democrats, like the one we just what was his name? Adam
Smith.
Whatever his name was. Adam
Smith. Ironically,
he was like
economist.
He was like, Biden needed to make the case that the Democratic message was he didn't even need to do that. All he had to do was make the case that he was alive, that he can talk in complete coherent sentences and was lively. He just had to act, and he could not pull off even a performance. Like it's bad. It's bad.
Well, that's a good point, Matt. And I think it's something that I've been focusing on a lot too. It's just like, who put him on that stage like that? Because this is a sort of separate issue from Joe Biden's own cognitive ability. But at some point, someone decided in the Biden campaign, the Biden administration, his team of like handlers decided they were going to put him on stage like that without, at the very least, cultivating a narrative in the media before he went on that stage that like he's going to do bad. Everyone's going to see him do bad, but we're going to say that he got hit in the head before he got on stage. Like he was fighting a bear. He was rescuing some orphans from a burning building. He caught a head wound. They bandaged his head, put a little like fake blood on there. He comes out. He looks like a hero. Something. They just let him implode on stage. They let him get on that stage, implode. They had the whole media backlash of like people for the first time being like, what the hell is this? We saw MSNBC, we saw Joyanne Reid, like we saw a bunch of people just like be exposed to this for the first time live. That should not have happened from a purely pragmatic political standpoint. They should have already known going in like he's going to do bad and that he has a cold and that's the reason why. A lot of what has caused this like dip in his polls and people's perception has been the media backlash. I think he's right about that, but that's also his fault. And
of course.
That makes me concerned because even if Biden were, I just want to last point, like, even if Biden was a perfect candidate, his campaign is clearly bad because they put him on that stage. And so like that makes me worried because like you would need a way better, way more like savvy campaign around you to get like him across the finish line. And he clearly doesn't have that.
Right. I think the media backlash point is sort of like sort of a boy who cried wolf moment for the media. Like they always make a big deal out of these performative theatrics, the political theater moments. All like people are focused on Biden having a bad debate, like the Biden defenders. He had a bad debate. And yes, our media apparatus has traditionally made a big to-do out of debates that truly, in the big picture, don't really mean much. People have a bad debate, they stumble, they say the wrong thing, but this was different. This wasn't about the debate itself. The debate was just basically the format in which people discovered the much bigger problem, and that is Biden is not there. All there anymore.
Exactly.
There's something very wrong. This isn't the same guy people voted for even 4 years ago. There are videos showing him like side by side, his 2020 debate with Trump and this most recent one. This isn't a bad debate issue. This is a guy who's changed over time due to age, and there's no fixing it. There's no going back. And the media finally has a moment to actually make a real deal out of something that happened to debate that isn't just theatrics, but people are able to brush that off as the media being the media because previous debates, like with, Obama and Romney or anyone else in history, they've made some big deal like debates matter. Debates traditionally really do not matter unless they pull back the curtain on something much bigger. And that's what happened this time around.
I 100% agree with you. I also will add that, like an average person, I'm not going to blame them for being concerned about the cognition of the president. Are we supposed to pretend like people shouldn't be fascinated by this story or be a little bit concerned?
It's scandalous.
It's scandalous, and it's also, I think it actually offends an average voter's sense of their own patriotism because he looks so damn weak up there. For a normal an average person who maybe isn't as engaged with politics, they go like, I look at that person, he makes me sad. He bums me out and doesn't make me feel good about America.
I mean, normal voters aside, we know how Democrats felt about Nixon being obviously senile in the second half of his term, and it wasn't charitable. It wasn't, wow, the Republicans...
Reagan, you mean?
Reagan, yeah, what did I say?
Nixon, yeah.
Reagan, yeah, like Reagan. Like Leslie Stahl said she had an interview with Reagan in like 86 where there was nothing behind his eyes, and he seemed completely absent. That's what's going on with Biden now. And for like my entire life, when I heard liberals comment on that, it was, oh my God, how soulless of the Republicans to prop a guy up like that so they could just accrue power. And Americans have that coding of this as well too. We can, say, look at this antitrust, look at these labor policies, look at all these things. Like, you're electing an administration, not a individual. And I, in a sort of a vacuum, agree with all that. It is gross to people to keep putting a confused guy out there and putting him from cameras and like trying to act as if it's fine. It's not.
Well, that's not. I mean, we may vote that way, but like we're the most as politically engaged as it gets. We do this professionally. To expect other people to vote that way is just the most losing strategy I could think of. No one's going to be like, oh, Brett McGurk really has things on lockdown, so that's who I'm going to be voting for in 2024. It's just insane.
Yeah. So I just wanted to just to piggyback off that, Emma and Brandon. So last week, former Obama Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson said on Morning Joe, "A presidency is more than just one man. I would take Joe Biden at his worst state at age 86, so long as he has people around him like Avril Haines, Sam Power, Gina Raimondo supporting him over Trump any day." So first of all, it's just absolutely hysterical that voters would be like, yeah, all of Biden's like either his spooks, his foreign policy apologists, or the commerce secretary who basically has made like a Goldman Sachs shop out of a cabinet agency would be the people to like really invigorate voters. But to Brandon's point, why would I have any faith in anybody around him if this is how things are going? Like, why would my thing be like, besides maybe, I don't know, the NLRB general counsel and Lena Khan, that maybe that's the argument, but like the arguments they're making are for the people who are literally doing not only a disservice to the policy of this administration, but also to the man himself.
Well, I mean, this is also...
but also that's sort of a bad, like, even if he did have this great team around him and everything was great, I get that argument. But at the end of the day, the buck still stops with him and he has to sign off on their decision. And someone who's losing it cognitively might have a great team around them, but be so set in their ways and dismissive of them because of those issues that they don't take their expertise and they don't sign off on it and they just do things their way anyway. So in this case, I actually don't trust that because Biden's still the guy who's got to sign off on it. And if he's not there, maybe these great experts he won't even listen to.
Well, I would also just say, first, that is still counter to what Democrats were saying just like 4.5 years ago, in the sense that you would hear all the time, like, Trump, he's a guy with his finger on the button. Like he has his finger on the button. Do you want a guy like Trump with his finger on the button? And now suddenly it's like, well, it actually takes a team of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to push that button. So it's like, yeah, like, okay, I know that to be true, right? I know there's not like a literal button that he's going to press to do, but that's not what you were saying to the average voter to like strike fear in their heart. And this is also about what it does to like your everyday average liberal who's not just like, ranking, not just like beating the drum for Biden because they have something wrong with their brain too, and they feel a kinship to like John Fetterman. The Democratic Party sells itself as the party of like smart people. Like even when they lose, like you said about Reagan, like they're the ones who like, oh no, Hillary Clinton may have lost, but like the Republicans are the dumb ones. They're the ones who can't string a sentence together. Covfefe, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and now they're just saying that, like,
kill me.
like, yeah, exactly. And then after Biden messed up the debate, suddenly
I think
they
it
were
was
just
Covfefe.
like, oh, Covfefe. Excuse
That's the
me.
correct pronunciation, good sir.
Yes.
Covfefe, unprecedented.
Real Covfefe heads know.
Exactly. And then like after Biden messed up the debate, suddenly they're like, who cares if you speak well? Like, who cares if you're eloquent?
I know.
Like, that's like, and it's just like, I get it. I get it.
Also,
It's a
democracy being on the ballot. Democracy's on the ballot, but we're gonna trot somebody out there who has no chance of winning. Or the other thing is, resistance liberals are upset that why aren't you covering Trump more? Why aren't you covering Trump's cognitive issues more? But also, media, why did you give Trump all this free media before and cover the president? You're helping him out. There's so many contradictions. It's insane.
And some of the biggest Biden surrogates are literally like for example, John Fetterman being like, voters need to grow a pair and again grow a spine. It's like, yeah, cool, man. I guess, yeah, bullying the people who are supposed to support the candidate you are insisting stays in the race, despite enormous red flags everywhere you turn. Yeah, tell them they're actually just being a bunch of babies. That'll help.
The biggest red flag is that Donald Trump is defending Joe Biden. He's defending Joe Biden from Joe Biden from George Clooney.
Yeah.
Like if they can only fuse together, that'd be great. Like, but he's defending Joe Biden from George Clooney. He's coming out and saying, look, the Hollywood elites are turning on Joe Biden. George Clooney,
right,
failed actor, is turning on Joe Biden. It's crazy. Disloyalty. It's like, that should tell you how bad of idea it is to run Joe Biden.
Trump wants to run against him.
Strategy.
Right.
He's doing the Pied Piper strategy on him. He's just waiting for he's literally just waiting for the convention to be over and it to be like literally too late to replace him, and then it's going to be a wave of ads about Joe Biden's cognitive decline the day after the convention, the day after it's over.
It wouldn't surprise me if Trump, who notoriously went out of his way to avoid having debates, it wouldn't surprise me if he, after the last debate, immediately contacted the DNC and was like, I would like to do 8 more of those, please.
Yeah. That's another reason why it's Joe Biden's fault if you were to replace him with Kamala Harris, because I would not be surprised if Trump would refuse to debate Kamala, because like that would just be what, the smart move to say, like, I already debated the person I thought I was going to run against and we've already signed those contracts. I'm not debating someone separate. Like they got rid of Joe Biden. That would why would you give her shine? It's like,
it's a great point, and he also couldn't delegitimize her in the way he tried to with Obama in this racist way, where he said he wasn't a real American. He can delegitimize Kamala Harris by doing that, I feel like, in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it would work against him. People, the reaction to that would not go in their favor, because only, as we saw with Obama, only the most red pill brained right wingers find that to be a legitimate issue, and the rest of the public rejected it.
Exactly.
Like,
it makes them
so, like,
show their ass. Make them have to show who they truly are.
Exactly. Make them be who they are, right? And there's nothing that would pull that curtain from them than having to run against a black woman. Seriously. I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I definitely agree. And if she had a lot more time, that would be the exact track to take. I think, unfortunately, with Joe Biden being being the head of the ticket right now, even if she drops out, I'm only hammering this because if Kamala were to run, although I do not support her in all of the things that she has done in the past, she would certainly be an improvement in terms of just a practical application of presidency than Joe Biden is. The same, I would hope a better team would be behind her if that's really what you're so concerned about. But and this is not because of the like impact it would have on the possibility of other Black neoliberals becoming president either. I just think that it would be very easy for the Republicans to turn Kamala's candidacy about Joe Biden still too. Like it would be very easy to like, I'm sure she would try to pivot to the issues, but they would be able to hammer her on immigration, hammer her on like inflation, and then it would be like, where's Joe Biden? Like Joe Biden, is he taking a nap somewhere? Joe Biden, like, how come you didn't know? How come you didn't say anything? You're a last minute replacement. Things that like she won't be able to just hand wave, because unfortunately they did give the Republicans this weapon, which is the ability to have said, like, we were the only ones telling you this truth for the past 4 years. And that's how Trump got in the first time, this ability to lift this veil of, this at least ostensible veil of secrecy that the media had on just like power in general.
Yeah.
That's the smartest reason for not, if I was a politician, fully coming out and saying, hey, Joe, step aside for Kamala, is I think she might be a loser too. I do think if you're going to lose, there are better ways to lose, like we've just been saying.
Yeah.
And I think Joe is such a, catastrophic waste of an election season. He can't elaborate any of the points you want him to. And at least Kamala, if she does lose, and I don't know.
She can drive turnout.
I saw a general election poll that says she's up 3. But I don't make election, predictions. But I can say that she is better at campaigning than Joe Biden is.
It would improve morale. And I think that's important too. They're kind of like discounting that, but like not just down ticket, races, but the approval and morale from moving from like an older white candidate who can't string together 2 sentences to at least a not corpse, regardless of other identity issues, would at least make Democrats who are on the fence now, who are saying, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, but I'm not going to feel good about it, feel good about their vote. So that hopefully in 2026 and 2028, even if Democrats don't win in 2024, there's this energy that is like for resisting and for moving forward, maybe even that progressives can take advantage of in those next elections. But to run Joe Biden and he loses, it's going to have a knock-on effect. It's going to affect morale. It's going to be harder to convince younger voters to vote for Democrats in the future if you show at this point in time that, you're just completely intransigent on the democratic process within your own party.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a call.
Also, just to add, with so many sitting Democratic Congress people now coming out publicly against Biden, how do they even move on from here and campaign for the Democratic Party as a whole, campaign for Biden, when so many members of your party have openly said now that he can't do it?
I agree.
If he sits and stays, what do you do?
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.